Okay, welcome everybody. Again, we're still on Zoom, so we don't get the host benefits of um, Brown and Caldwell with the pastries and that type of thing. And last time, they're talking about vaccines in early 2021 for us here in California. So it'll be a while that we're still on Zoom, but I do miss getting together and networking with you all. So a couple months ago, I talked about the fire season and how at that point in time, we were cresting 400,000 acres in California, which was trending towards a new record. Well, we're at 4.1 million acres as of today. That's 4% of the state of California. So horrific fire season. And it comes after what was a very dry season. Last winter, we did get some rain late in the season, thank goodness. But it's been dry. I did look up the Farmer's Almanac, as I usually do. Northern California is predicted, if you believe this, to be rainy and a normal temperature. Southern California, however, is dry and with mild temperatures. As we prefaced a little bit ago, we're deep in the election season, 2 weeks until voting, or actually a lot of voting is already happening. I find that very intriguing, but good luck to the candidates. Kristen, I did vote for you. Barbara, I voted for you. So, as you know, my wife is running for Walnut Creek City Council. Usually Paul Kazi's on the line here. Somebody say something?
No.
Okay. So another follow-up. In August, we had a presentation from the 3 reservoir projects in our region, the Sites Reservoir, Expand Los Vaqueros, and Pacheco. And one of the things we committed to was to sending letters to the secretaries of California, of EPA, Cal EPA, and resources. We did that, asking them to make sure that these reservoirs are a high priority for their agencies that they oversee, and ask them how the streamlining is going to happen, because the water plan that has come out from the governor indicates that these projects would be streamlined. And so we did get a response back from Cal EPA, and we have a telephone call actually tomorrow with the deputy secretary for Cal EPA to hear about the reservoir projects and to share with us their idea of what priority means and their idea of what streamlining means. And along those lines, Kristen, you and I should talk afterwards as to how we're going to coordinate that, because we do, I believe, have all 3 reservoirs that'll be on the line in only a half hour, so not very long. As the group here knows, that we have combined 2 task force, the Water and Environmental Manufacturing Task Force. We call ourselves the WE Task Force. And what that means is that rather than just covering water, we now cover both water and environmental and manufacturing issues. And so as a part of that process, the 2 co-chairs from the Environmental and Manufacturing Task Force, George and Audrey, are on the line today as well. But we're starting to incorporate their ideas into our upcoming meetings, and today is one of those where they will be featuring a huge solar project in Livermore. And so with that, I'll just turn it over to Dan to talk about upcoming meetings, and then we'll follow by George.
Good morning. We've got a lot of good, interesting meetings coming up, and a lot of these are already set. So next month, November 17th, we're going to have a report on the decentralized water reuse system, Facebook's on-site campus in Menlo Park. So that's all squared away and set to go. There won't be a meeting in December, so we take our traditional holiday break. After the turn of the year in January, we're going to have a presentation from Lawrence Livermore Lab on their Getting to Neutral report to talk about carbon emissions. In February, George is taking the lead on setting up a presentation by the Rodeo Refinery, the Phillips 66 site, to look at potential reuse of those facilities. So it's interesting to see what's being thought about. And then in March, we're set for a water legislative update on California water bills for 2021. So lots of good things here. We have a lot of other items for later on in the year in the hopper. If you have ideas that you'd like the WE group to consider, please share those with me or Gary or George or Lindy or any of the members on the planning team. We're next meeting in December. The planning team is over beers, virtual beers, if nothing else, to talk about our schedule. And if there's a hot or a timely issue, by all means, share it with us, and we'll see how we can shoehorn it in to our program.
Good. So with that, I think I'll take the lead in doing the introduction of Marisa Mitchell. Marisa, welcome back to our committee. I think you spoke to the Environmental Task Force about 2 or 3 years ago. So it's good to have you back again. It's good to hear about progress being made with Intersect Power and solar power projects. Marisa leads the land use permitting, community engagement, and environmental policy matters for Intersect Power. She's very passionate about designing renewable energy infrastructure that maximizes environmental impacts and maximizes environmental enhancements as well. So working in the utility scale renewable energy space since 2006, Marisa has a wealth of experience in all phases of the development cycle. So that includes initial site selection all the way through construction compliance. And she has expertise in relevant environmental law and policies, and she has key relationships with various regulatory agencies. She served on the Avian Solar Working Group and was appointed in 2017 to the U.S. Department of the Interior's Royal Policy Committee. She's also a part-time summer lecturer in corporate finance at UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business. She holds an MBA from the Haas School of Business, an MA in Environmental Studies from the University of California, Santa Cruz, and a BS in Environmental Science from the University of California at Berkeley. So with that, Marisa, we'll turn it over to you. Thank you for, I'm glad you got the link this morning. I think I sent you one as well. So
yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Thanks, George and Lindy and everybody from the committee. It's good to see some familiar names and faces. And yeah, some of you may have learned about this project, the Aramis Renewable Energy Project, a couple of years ago. I think it was in 2018 when I had the opportunity to speak to the Environmental Task Force. And Jody London, it's good to see your face too. We did have a project in Contra Costa County as well that I spoke about in 2018. That project has since terminated, but it's nice to see that Contra Costa County has been issuing important climate orders. So really happy to see that. And thanks for inviting me today. I will share my screen here. How's that look for everybody? Can you see just the one slide? Okay. I don't know if I get this right.
Yeah, we can see both.
Oh, you can see both. Okay, let me switch the
This exact thing happened on our infrastructure task force. It's easy to do. Thank you very much. You got it. Now we can see the
that's
one.
That's better. Okay,
yep,
good.
Perfect.
And then the other thing that sometimes happens is when I flip the slide like that, it doesn't work. You're good? Okay, great. Fantastic. Thank you. Yes, still learning Zoom. I should have my kids tutor me a little bit. So the Aramis Renewable Energy Project, as George mentioned, it's in the North Livermore area. It's a 100 megawatt project. That would be the largest in Northern California. It is a photovoltaic energy project, but it also has a battery storage system. So 100 megawatts of 4-hour battery storage. And I'll explain that in a little while. It'll create 400 union jobs. It'll offset quite a bit of CO2, and it'll power about 25,000 average Bay Area homes throughout the year, though in summer months, it'll power a lot more than that. Intersect Power, we're a Bay Area business. I'm a Bay Area kid, born and raised, been here my whole life. And most of our executive team lives in Alameda County and San Francisco County as well. We really like to find sites that are low impact from the beginning and work with the community to make sure that we're doing the enhancements necessary to kind of fit into the community, and also working with NGOs, both local and regional, national, to try to optimize the use of the site for threatened and endangered species and all kinds of critters, and really manage these sites like solar ecosystems rather than industrial facilities. So that's sort of the bleeding edge of how these projects are looking to be managed in the future. And this project, I think, is going to be a really, really interesting example of that. And I'll explain a little bit more later. We have just, we are in the process of the project right now. We're in a draft EIR comment period. So the environmental impact report was released last month. And I just wanted to kind of go over some of the conclusions of the EIR. The EIR finds that the project as proposed would conform with the county's general plan, zoning ordinance, Measure D policies, except for a chunk of land in the northern area that is designated as a resource management district by the county's general plan. But all significant impacts would be mitigated except for one aesthetics impact, and that's due kind of from the change between pasture land and what would be proposed now, which would be panels, but screened with vegetation. And then also that conflict with the resource management designation. Just two significant impacts, which is remarkable for a project of this size. And it was just a comprehensive document, and the county has done an excellent job with that. It finds that the project will not be growth inducing. So because the construction phase is temporary, and this doesn't create a lot of traffic or anything like that beyond the construction phase, no growth inducing impacts here. And there are 65 different mitigation measures that we'll have to comply with during the pre-construction, construction, operation, and decommissioning phases to make sure impacts are minimized. The resource management avoidance alternative is the one that the county has identified as having fewer environmental impacts compared with the proposed project. And this loses 22 acres of the project site, which is already pretty small for 100 megawatts of solar. It'll be kind of record breaking in how much solar we're cramming onto this site. But we still can build it. We can build it at this level. This is a simulation of what the project will look like once constructed with the vegetation screening. This is a view from, if you're driving along 580 and you take North Livermore Road north, this is what you will see. So it used to be cattle pasture, and now it will be solar fields covered by some medium to high shrubbery. These will be pollinator friendly plants. So we're hoping to enhance habitat for native pollinators and also bring some beekeepers onto the site as well. But the nice thing is that the long distance views are still unobstructed. There's been a lot of questions about rooftop solar versus utility scale solar. Folks are saying, hey, let's just all put it on rooftop. Why do we need this big expansive solar facility? Well, there's some pretty big differences. The Aramis project would power about 25,000 homes annually, as I mentioned, but you'd need many, many more homes than that to produce the same amount of power on rooftops. The difference is in kind of the economies of scale that you can obtain with the equipment, the labor, the efficiency in the layout. We're using tracking technology, tracking panels. You can see on the left there a picture of the tracker. It tilts the entire array from east to west throughout the day to track the sun, to capture more solar radiation. Of course, the solar rooftop, the panels are fixed. They're at whatever angle the architect decided to construct the roof, not necessarily thinking about future solar in most cases. And of course, there's shading potential from adjacent trees and that kind of thing. The other great thing about the Aramis project is it'll incorporate a 4-hour battery system. So we are going to be able to deliver power to the local customers when power is needed most, not just when the sun is shining most brightly. So we can even produce power well into the evening hours, which is great. In terms of the timeline, the close of the comment period is November 2nd. That's a key date. And we were really happy to have received a support letter from EBLC in the past, and would love it if folks would be willing to support the project again. It's a critical time in the period of the project's development when we're getting close to the end here and looking towards an approval in November by the Board of Zoning Adjustments. We've signed a 5-craft project labor agreement, so all the jobs will be union jobs, and we expect that they will be all from the Bay Area, primarily Alameda County, which is great. It will also generate a lot of sales tax and property tax revenues for the county, and we'll be doing procurement locally. We'll establish a point of sale in the county, so all of those sales tax revenues will also be going to Alameda County. And then we're projecting a lot of indirect and induced economic benefits from, gas purchases and hotel room stays, that type of thing. And we are collecting local vendors. So anybody who wants to participate in the project, we're putting them on a list and, asking our EPC contractor to maximize the number of local vendors that can be involved in the project. Gravel supply, porta potty supply, fencing, seed supply, that kind of thing. We have been working closely with the Livermore schools to talk about some opportunities for STEM education and outdoor education at the project site. We're proposing to dedicate a public hiking trail, and we would like there to be some signage that we would develop with Livermore School District to create opportunities for teachers to take their kids out and learn about engineering, earth systems, the ecology of how you manage a site like an ecosystem, a solar project site, and math, plus outdoor education. So that's exciting to us and to the school district. Folks have also been concerned lately about the county considering this project in advance of adopting a solar policy, and they're actually pointing to Jody's excellent solar policy that was adopted in Contra Costa County. I believe it was finalized last year. And yes, unfortunately, there is no solar policy, but the general plan and Measure D policies already do speak to the attributes of solar that are most important to consider. And staff developed a draft solar policy in 2018, and the project is compatible with that draft solar policy. And the staff is moving forward with that policy now, but we are encouraging the county to consider approval of the Aramis project in advance of taking on a sort of a lengthy solar policy process. This is a simulation of what the hiking trail could look like. The dark band in the back there, that would be the solar panels. So on this side of the project site, the west side of the project site, the hiking trail would be, the solar panels would be visible. On the street side, where I showed you the landscaping vegetation to cover the panels, that would be for public vantage points along North Livermore and Manning Avenue. We are working with some researchers at San Jose State and UC Davis to make sure we optimize conditions on the site for raptor foraging. And we've done a couple of studies in the past where we compare our solar project sites once constructed and revegetated with adjacent agricultural lands. And it turns out most raptors they prefer to forage and hunt their food in the solar project sites compared to adjacent agricultural lands. We're also going to be working with the Avian Solar Working Group, Audubon California, NRDC, and the research institutions I just mentioned to provide some funding and hope to get some matching funding for a residual habitat value study. So this is really important for understanding how Northern California solar projects can be designed and managed over time and adaptively managed to optimize solar production with habitat value. So converting the site from sort of a heavily grazed site to really looking at managing the habitat on site. So we'll be removing disking, which is not great for critters, and we'll be doing a lot of soil amendments and planting the right forage and flowers to make sure that we optimize habitat. We will be doing targeted sheep grazing, so no more disking, no mechanical mowing. We'll be using sheep to manage the habitat, and this continues with some of the agricultural activities on site. We will also be creating a community apiary, working with the Alameda County Beekeepers Association, and they're interested in having a little portion of the site to keep bees and to teach community members, teach classes on beekeeping. And because the site will be completely planted with pollinator-friendly forage, it's a great spot for beekeeping. This is what the landscaping will look like. We've got plans for everything here. And oops, got that one already. A couple of other really cool things. We're working with a bunch of great organizations. One of them is the Zero Net Energy Center, which is a training center based in Oakland for folks feeding into the unions, and it trains folks in all aspects of renewable energy installation and construction practices. And then we're also partnering with Tipping Point, which is a local nonprofit, and we're donating $250,000 worth of rooftop solar systems. And Tipping Point is going to be selecting 10 local nonprofit organizations to put rooftop solar systems to help them manage their costs. We're doing a lot of other donations. You can see up at the top here, we've committed or already donated to a bunch of local organizations that are helping serve the community locally during this pandemic. And it's really tough for these local nonprofits. And then we've got a lot of support so far, and would love your continued support here. I put you guys down here as a past supporter. I think this is a 21st century project that the Bay Area can be proud of. There has been some local opposition recently, and I mean, it's my understanding that folks are a little bit afraid of change, and fear that a project like this would set a precedent and kind of overrun the Livermore Valley with solar fields. There's a couple of reasons why that is exceedingly unlikely to be the case. The interconnection point for this project is the Cayetano substation, which is right on the project site. And it is fully subscribed. With this project, we would be building out the last interconnection position at that substation. So somebody would need to come in, another generator, if they wanted to come in, they would find that they'd have to spend about $25 million just to get to the point to being able to interconnect by building out that substation. So I don't think people should worry about this project setting a precedent, because the economics are not in the favor of solar panels blanketing the valley. So with that, I'd love to be able to hear what you folks think and answer any questions you might have. And thanks so much.
Great. Well, thank you, Marisa. That was great. I know I was taking copious notes sitting here. I'm sure other people were as well. Even though it is our practice that we ask our speakers to share their slides and we put those up on our website.
Sure.
So if you can do that, that'd be great. So just a question about the habitat management and just the approach. We had a question right out of from someone about whether or not you're going to be using native plants or not. My assumption was yes, but I wanted to just be explicit in terms of asking that question.
Yeah, we're going to be using primarily native plants. We might also use some naturalized species. So naturalized is they don't necessarily come from California or the West, but they have naturalized here, and they are not invasive. They won't take over. And the reason we do that is, in part, it's great to create a right before you install the panels. It's great to amend the soil and then install a cover crop, which creates a sort of moist matrix within which you can eventually, once that kind of dies off, you can plant your native seeds to make sure they germinate in an environment that's more favorable than just like toss them on the ground or even doing hydro seeding, it's better to create a matrix of ryegrass or something like that to help your seeds germinate. So that has been a best practice. So yeah, we will probably incorporate some naturalized species that are great for pollinators as well. The final seed mix is not completely decided, but yes, the emphasis is on native seeds for sure.
And then just to follow up about so you talked about that there has been some opposition that has started to form, and this concern about the Livermore Valley being overrun by solar arrays, but that the economics don't suit that. Can you just say more about kind of who is constituting? Is it the wine growers are nervous? Is it homeowners? Is it NIMBYs? Can you just sort of give us a little more flavor about that?
Yeah, so my understanding, and I've spoken to a lot of folks, there's one particular neighbor who would be affected by the visual impact of this project from their home. And we have been speaking to them and visiting with them at their home since 2018, early 2018, and have of course offered to install landscaping around their home to obstruct the view of the solar facility, but not the more distant hillsides and the longer distance view. You know, over the last couple of years, there's been a resistance to that. So we've offered a lot of solutions, but the neighbor has decided to sort of, they decided to dig in their heels and really fund an opposition sort of task force. They've hired an attorney and a PR firm to represent them. They've started a Facebook group. So it really does seem like it's originating from one particular neighbor in terms of the urgency of it and the kind of well-funded nature of it. But as far as the other folks who are joining on, they what I'm hearing is that in 2000 the voters passed Measure D, and they thought that Measure D would protect from any type of development at all, that agriculture would be sort of sacrosanct and the community buffer would be sacrosanct, which I think is true, and your standard solar project would not have been able to moved forward in this area without offering a lot of modifications and concessions and design features that you know, make sure that the project is compatible with community values. So a lot of the solar projects that you might see in the Central Valley probably not go over here very well. So yes, I think, and Bruce is on the line, he can speak more to what he's hearing from opponents as well. But there's definitely some misinformation out there. I mean, you can Google all kinds of weird things on the internet and find out things about projects and battery systems that are not accurate. So there's a little bit going on as well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And then, so Tim put in the chat that he has a question. So if you want to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
Here we are. Great. Thanks so much for the presentation. I'm Tim Mason. I've done a lot of large-scale siting work in California for solar and wind facilities. I do a lot on the transmission grid as well, and have tried to do work in Alameda County before. Very excited to see this project going forward. Alameda County certainly has the capability to contribute to renewables within the San Francisco load area, and glad to see it moving forward. So just a couple questions and a couple clarifications on it. One of the things is that you mentioned one of the benefits was creating 400 jobs, but on a permanent basis, how many jobs would you see at the facility?
Yeah, we're looking at about 4 permanent jobs ongoing for operations. So that's actually higher than right now, which is about 2 jobs for the cattle ranching operation.
Okay. I mean, you know, one of those things, just as well, 2 things. I always get a little bit leery when people talk about some of the benefits, because a lot of the benefits, I mean, working in some of the different counties, people have been very disappointed that, you know, when they hear 400 jobs and they find out that it's only 2 permanent jobs, counties have been very disappointed in the past on that. And I have very painful experiences in several of them, including San Bernardino. And the other issue is that, you know, I mean, in some ways it works from a benefit environmentally, because you're not creating a lot of new traffic. You know, you've got some temporary traffic. So, I mean, you know, I just put that up for the county's consideration, is that the traffic is problems tend to be very short term. So another question that I have is that, do you have, it's 100 megawatts or so, on 400 acres, which is astoundingly small. Are you using bifacial plant panels, or how are you doing it? Just
Yeah, so I don't think we're going to be able to be using bifacial panels on this particular site. And I'm not an engineer, and so I'm totally going to misspeak here, but we are getting some production loss from the ground cover ratio being so high on this project site. But the other attributes of the site are favorable, and with the battery system, it certainly does help extend the delivery time frame for the project. So it is tiny. It is not a lot of acreage to work with. It was not our preference to have such a small site, but yeah, we wanted to make sure it was fully compatible with the county's general plan, and with we needed to set back from the creek and its floodplain. There's a creek that runs through it. You might have noticed on the figure, there's kind of some odd configurations of the panels. We wanted to set back from the trees. It looks like somebody else has a question about oak trees. There is a sort of ephemeral creek that runs through the project site, and there are mature oak trees there. So we wanted to protect those and preserve those, because they are nesting and perching habitat for important bird species. So
okay.
yeah, it wasn't our preference, and we're really cramming it on there. But
Is the battery system included in the 400 acres as well, or is that in addition to the 400 acres?
yeah, that's included, and it's going to be set relative to public viewpoints, public roads. The battery system, luckily, is all going to be directly behind the PG&E substation that's there, so nobody's even going to see it, which is great.
Okay, so you won't have any, you will have very few new poles coming in to go to the substation from the site?
Yeah, there will either be one pole, or it will just be undergrounded directly into the substation. And
Okay.
the PG&E on the final details there. We expect really all of the poles to be able to be undergrounded. We're just finalizing with other authorities like and PG&E and the county public works department to make sure we can. So hoping to be able to underground everything.
Okay.
Did you have more? That was a number of questions. I didn't know if you had more, Tim.
No, sorry, that's fine.
No, that's great. So just in terms of, let's just assume for a second that you're wildly successful, that things get approved in a timely fashion. Can you walk through the timeline of the construction, and then you guys are at what point you expect to be operational?
Yeah, sure, of course. So hoping we do get approved this year, and we're expecting an appeal to go to the Board of Supervisors. Hopefully that'll happen this year as well. It might bleed into January, February timeframe. There could be some litigation, but we would like to begin installing the vegetation around the perimeter of the site initially, so that the vegetation can have a chance to kind of mature a bit and get bushier to really screen the facility from view. So that would be step one. That combined with doing a number of other additional background studies for mammals and birds use of the site, because we want to make sure we're able to do a before-after control impact ecology study at the site. So we'll be selecting some reference sites to use as examples that would be our control sites. So we have a year and a half worth of just growing the vegetation screening and doing the background research. And then we would begin construction in about mid-22, complete by mid-23, So at that point, about mid-23, the project would be operational and delivering all of its power to the grid.
Great, thank you. And then Tracy had a question.
I can.
You were unmuted before. Now you just muted yourself. There you go. Nope, there you go. Okay, yeah,
Okay, sorry about that.
no problem.
Sorry, I thought I was muted. I have a question. I've always thought solar is great and it seems wonderful and the way to go, and just all these reasons you showed with the animals and the people and the kids and the educational and just kind of what can be done. And I am an engineer, but on the water side, so I don't have a solar background or really know about this. Anything I learned from solar was through this group, which was nice, and a previous speaker that came and talked. And the one concern I have with any solar, not just this project or anything, is about the disposal in the future. Hearing that we're leaving our kids or kids this huge waste that can't be disposed of, and so I'm really kind of conflicted. It's kind of like, you know, recycling your dishes. Do you wash them out and waste the water to wash them out and recycle them, or because you're wasting one resource to save another? And so I have a kind of concern with that, and I don't know, is it being looked at or forwarded, or what's being solved with respect to disposal of the one bad part?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're working with industry leaders, vendors, and panel manufacturers, battery manufacturers we're trying to push the industry forward in terms of like a cradle to cradle economy. We are, and we've got a lot of time here. I mean, we have kind of just started this initiative. There are a bunch of voluntary certification programs that are going to be coming online here soon, that look at the cradle to cradle opportunities for solar systems and battery systems. So that is coming. And because this project would likely be installed with the equipment that we're putting in 2022, it would probably be there for 35 years without having to dispose of a majority of any of that stuff. We've got time to advance the technology there. First Solar has been a partner with us in supplying a lot of our projects. I think every single project we've done so far with solar panels. And they have, in the past, have had a take back and recycling program. So they're able to recycle all the components of their modules and create very little waste. So that is promising, and we're gonna work with them to push that forward. But I think it's really important when you're thinking about kind of relative environmental impacts. It's, you know, you can't be a perfect human, right? Everything you do is going to have some kind of environmental impact. And it's worth kind of doing a little bit of math and thinking, well, what's the relative impact of, you know, putting in a solar project that maybe has some end of life issues that we're really going to have to get a handle on before 30 years is up or 35 years is up, versus delaying, you know, really acting on converting our energy to renewable sources. And one of the supporters of this project recently, he's an engineer and he was doing some calculations, and he just sent me over yesterday an email. He said, well, if the county were to delay approving this project for 2 years, the environmental impacts, the cost of the environmental impacts that would be created by continuing to rely on fossil fuels instead of having this project installed is about $4 million worth of air quality related mortality and morbidity, and hospital stays and asthma medications and other environmental impacts related to, you know, increase in carbon concentrations in the atmosphere. So I thought that was a really interesting way to look at it. Like if you could boil everything down to this sort of monetization, which is not very realistic, but also, you know, helps you understand the relative magnitude. I mean, my thought here, and it's always driven me in my career, is that the climate crisis is now, and we really can't wait. We need leadership, and we're gonna definitely figure out the details. So. That's helpful.
Okay, and actually, so in a battle of our key leaders, we're first going to go to Gary Darling, who had his hand up, and then we're going to go to George Smith. So Gary, you're up.
Okay, thanks, Kristen. So, yeah, Marissa, I was just wondering if it's public information, what is the economics? What are the economics of this project, like the capital costs, anticipated operating, and anticipated revenue?
Yeah, I don't think that is public, but and I don't even have those numbers in front of me, but the capital cost of the project is somewhere around like $300 million, something like that. I mean, these are expensive systems to install. They're really capital intensive, but their operational costs are like close to zero, essentially. They're very low. It's, you know, 4 operators and there's, you know, spare parts and some maintenance. Sometimes you have to wash the panels if it doesn't rain. So it's pretty low intensity. So on a levelized cost of energy basis, solar is, you know, the investment is a lot higher in the beginning, but the operational costs are close to zero. So on a levelized cost basis, it's really, really competitive with other sources right now.
Okay, thanks. Another question. West County Sanitary was one of the first pioneering agencies to put in a solar field that has trackers. And if you go by their facility today, half of the panels are up, half are down. And so just hoping that the technology's improved a lot for this project so that you don't have that kind of mismatch going on and a visual impact that brings about it. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, every project we've ever done that has gone all the way through to construction and commercial operation is still in operation. We, of course, I don't know how that project was capitalized or funded or what the situation was there, but this project will have 2 long-term power purchase agreements with East Bay Community Energy and Clean Power San Francisco. And so we will be obligated to deliver the product that we said we were going to deliver. So we're going to be operating this at full capacity and fixing anything that breaks immediately. Yeah.
Okay, good. Final question.
We have liquidated damages, right?
Okay. Final question for me then is, I was in charge of the permitting of the Los Vaqueros Reservoir project 100 years ago, not too far from this project site. And we went through a, you know, very challenging consultations related to protected species like the San Joaquin kit fox, red-legged frog, and others. And so I'm assuming this 400 acres has an exclusionary fence around there. I just wondered how you worked through the protected species issues that confronted this project.
Yeah, thanks. Great question. And that's my area of expertise. So happy to answer that one. So yes, during the construction phase, we will be putting up an exclusionary fence to keep anything out. We did do 2 full years of protocol surveys for California red-legged frog and focus surveys for California tiger salamander, and there were none there. Adjacent to the project in the hills a little bit to the west, it is designated by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as critical habitat. And so we're going to subdivide the parcel where it's designated because of critical habitat and where it's just been cattle grazing for a long time. And that hilly portion that's critical habitat, those folks are looking at putting it into a conservation easement, maybe doing a mitigation bank or something like that. But my emphasis in my company is always like learning everything I can about the site up front, doing a lot of diligence, having expert biologist boots on the ground before we commit to a site. And it has to be low impact or we're not going to do it. If it's already great habitat, we're not going to fight that one. You know, we don't want to convert great habitat into a solar project site. So this one, we thought this is pretty degraded. It's been overgrazed for a long time. There's invasive weed species on site. We can habitat. The other thing that the ephemeral creek that runs through the project site, if we were impacting that at all and not setting back from its banks, we would have to go to CDFW for a streambed alteration agreement. We'd have to go to the Army Corps of Engineers to get a fill permit there. We're not doing any of that. So we're setting back, and that creek right now it's a little beat up and it could use some restoration. We're trying to get a partner that would come in maybe with some funding to do a restoration project there. I think that's an opportunity. It's not currently planned, but it's definitely something that it'll be property that we own that is part of the solar facility outside of the fence line. But it's something that we haven't yet figured out who's going to do that. But they would be the ones to get the stream bed alteration agreement, et cetera. During operations, though, we're going to not have an exclusionary fence. We're going to raise the fence 6 inches and allow critters to come in and occupy the site. If we've got, it would be great if San Joaquin kit fox came back to this area. They haven't been seen since the 80s, I believe, or the 90s. So in Alameda County, so it'd be great if they came back and denned in the project site down in the Carrizo Plain. There's a couple of solar projects, and the kit foxes absolutely love them. They have puppies every year there. It's really cute. So yeah, we're gonna let them take over the site and train our guys to be really careful and have a biologist consulting with us to make sure that we're avoiding anybody who's in a sensitive time of their life, having babies, that kind of thing.
Great, thank you.
Okay, George, thanks for being patient. You're up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Marisa, I have a question about the EIR. You mentioned that the comment period ends November 2nd. First question is, when did the ERI, when did it actually begin, and who's the consultant that's doing that?
Yeah, so the EIR, it's been going on since the beginning of the year. There was a notice of preparation issued, I believe it finally got issued in May, and then the draft EIR was published in September, and the final EIR will be published at the end of November. The environmental consultant leading that is Helix Environmental Planning.
Okay. And then at any point during the process, were there public meetings, during the pandemic, were there public meetings that were done by some type like Zoom or other video technology?
Yep, there was a Zoom meeting for the scoping period. And so there were a lot of residents that called in and listened to that. That was in May or June, I think it was June. Via Zoom, and it worked really well. Actually, I've been to more hearings than I can tell you over Zoom this year, and they all work fairly well.
Mm-hmm. Good. Did the NIMBY folks or whoever's blocking this, did they participate in those video calls? Yeah. And okay, that's good. So at this point, though, all the public meetings are done, right? So it's about 2 more weeks before the end of the public comment period, right? So there's no more public meetings, right?
We have on this Thursday, there is a public workshop by the Alameda County Board of Zoning Adjustments. It's basically a public information workshop about the draft EIR where people can provide comments or ask questions about the draft EIR. Right. So it is this Thursday at 1:30 p.m.
Right. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, I am not seeing any other questions from anybody, but wanted to offer another chance in case folks do have questions.
Yeah, Kristen, this is George. I just wanted to comment that I invited Tim Mason to join us. He is a renewable energy consultant, and if it's okay with Tim, I'd like to put him on our distribution list for the WE task force. Is that okay with you, Tim, if you're still there?
Sure, happy to. I've been doing this for a long time. I go back to, if any of you have been in the renewable business for a while, the READY program, the Renewable Energy Transmission Initiative in California, which was tasked with how do we get to 20% renewables. I was at Black & Veatch and was the primary author of the technical analysis about how we got to 20% and then 33% and then 50%, and advocated heavily on behalf of the Large Scale Solar Association to get us to 100% renewables. So pretty familiar with the renewable energy.
Right. Yeah, Kristen, I have just a comment for discussion, if I may.
Great, please.
So the thought occurs, in California, whenever you're trying to do anything, right, you've got blockage from one party or another. So I guess I'll throw it out for discussion, maybe to Marisa, Tim, or anybody else on the call, that, you know, how are we going to get there? How are we going to meet the governor of California's and state goals, you know, to wean ourselves away from fossil fuels by certain dates, with all the blockades along the way? And, you know, it seems like every time, even a green project like this one, you've got NIMBYs or whoever, you know, blocking the pathway. So are you optimistic that when you hear certain goals, like from the state, you know, government level, that we're going to get there in time?
Well, just real quickly, and then Tim, if you want to jump into, it is easier to put a solar project out in the Southern California desert, but they're all concentrated down there now, and we do need projects in load centers. It's important. We can't just have wires going from the Southern California desert up to the Bay Area and other load centers, and really have a well-functioning grid. And, you know, as we increasingly try to penetrate those load centers with projects like this, I think we're going to be faced with increasing resistance. So this is not going away. It's happening all over the country, not just in California.
Can I share an observation on this point, George?
Of course, yes, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jody
Hi.
London. I'm the sustainability coordinator for Contra Costa County, and I'm glad that one of the members of our sustainability commission told me about this meeting, because I'm not on the list yet, and this is right up my alley. So, George, this is what I would share with you. Many people want things to be different and better, and yet they don't want anything to change.
Yes, yeah.
That's attributable to me. You can quote me on that one.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely right. And we need our leaders to lead. I think our leaders need to stand up and appeal to not just people's sense of logic and doing the math for people. I think they need to put it in terms of emotion. I think that's what motivates people. That's what gets people up in the morning. That's what gets people going. That's what gets people remembering that there is a climate crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can do it. We've got a lot of great leaders who are willing to put themselves out there. We've got a lot of great environmental nonprofit organizations that are working with the industry to find the best places and push them forward and not fight them. So I think I'm optimistic.
I'm optimistic.
Hold on. Let's just hold a thought. Barbara, I want you to get a chance to get in here. We'll go Barbara, Gary, and then back to Tim.
I would just like to, I guess I need to say that, you know, when you put solar panels in somebody's view and they're living on a hill or wherever they're living, their green environment and their terrestrial feeling looks like a black hole or blight. And I think you can't ignore the aesthetic issue that is going on with solar panels, because the visual isn't good. And I think that is probably one of the barriers to moving forward without any controversy on them. I think that that's a real emotional piece that people feel when they see them.
Oh, I thought you were going somewhere different with that, Barbara, but I'll hold my thought. Okay, Gary, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, George. You know, you just have teed up a very good question of how do we get there, right? Our state legislature has mandated by 2045 that we become carbon neutral. How do we get there? And our governor, of course, is busy setting standards out there related to transportation and that type of thing. So in January, we're going to have a speaker from the Lawrence Livermore National Lab who is very high in the management there, but the lab put out a report last January and then updated it this August on how to get to neutral. And they have 4 different pillars there in terms of decarbonizing the state of California and how we can work through that. So I think that's an excellent question. How do we get there? Will there be opposition? There's always going to be opposition, but there's a lot of ideas out there, I think, and these are, very smart people. So stay tuned until the January presentation. I think that your question is
Right.
very well put. And, what impact does this have to our local refineries? We're going to address that as well, in terms
Right.
of Shell and Phillips and that type of thing. As we get off of fossil fuels, what's the impact to us?
Right.
And I think that's a great thing for this task force to focus on.
Right. And I'll just piggyback on that, say our February meeting, which Dan mentioned, is going to be about the conversion of one of the refineries, Phillips 66, away from hydrocarbon feedstocks to nature-based feedstocks. And also we've got the Marathon refinery doing the same thing. So just general numbers, California had over 30 refineries about 30 years ago. And today it's about 15 refineries in the state, and now declining, dropping off. So there's definitely a declining trend there. And we're going to be covering this in meetings here in the near future.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, just to jump in there, George, I mean, getting a briefing from Phillips 66, I mean, it's pretty revolutionary to think about instead of crude oil, it being soybean. Like that is a huge change in terms of Phillips' attempt to become the largest renewable diesel facility around. So yeah, no, I appreciate your leadership in terms of thinking about it, because that has huge economic impacts.
Right.
For the
Marathon also is going to convert to biomass. So that's two of the 5, that's 40% of the Bay Area refineries that are converting.
Yep. So, okay. Well, I wanted to sort of, if there are other questions to respect in terms of Marisa and Intersect. And so I take it from the couple comments that you made, Marisa, that you would welcome, another letter of support from the East Bay Leadership Council on this project. Are there any? Yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of was drowning on and not being very articulate in that moment.
No, that's okay. We would love a support letter from you folks. I think leaders in the community, it's just really great to get support letters. I know it's easier sometimes to get folks to come out and say talk about things they don't like, and it's a little bit more, it's a heavy lift to get folks to come out and talk about the things they do like. And so I think organizations like this are an excellent way to show our community leaders what we really want. So appreciate that.
And Tim, I didn't come back to you. So do you want to jump in here?
Well, I was going to address George's question and kind of glom onto some of the things that Jody said. I mean, how do we get there? We're there from the policy perspective. Not only does the state mandate it, all of the utilities and the CCAs, the community choice groups, they're all going to 100% renewables. The big problem is that where the fight is at the counties. It's at the county level. And I think it's important for especially this group to understand, because solar and wind facilities are all sited at the county level, and batteries are sited at the county level. And so there are a lot of NIMBYs out there. Going to Barbara's comment, I can't California that doesn't have a constituency.
Hold on. Hey, Tim.
To save it.
Tim, you froze for a second. Can you just re-say your last sentence?
Oh, sure. Addressing Barbara's concern, I've done a lot of work in a lot of counties, and I don't know of a piece of land in California that doesn't have a constituency that wants to keep it as open space, And so, I mean, nobody wants to see wind turbines. Nobody wants to see solar panels. It's a trade-off that we have to make. If we want clean energy, it's a trade-off that we have to make. In using degraded land in an urban or a near urban setting is probably the most optimal place to develop solar at this point in time.
I just was feeling it and needed to say it because no one did. I mean, it's real out there.
As someone who lives on a hillside in Lafayette and put in a large ground mount solar array and had to tent, pull it out, and oh, we think you should move it 6 inches. And we were like, hooey, stop. Anyway, no, I have definite perspective on that.
Yeah.
But I did actually, if you could go back, I didn't quite get it in my notes. You mentioned San Francisco, Marissa. Who are the two community? I think you have the power agreements with 2 community choice aggregators. Do I have that right?
East Bay Community Energy and Clean Power San Francisco.
Yeah, Clean Power San Francisco. Thank you. That was another question that I had in the chat. East Bay Community Energy. Okay. Well, there's obviously a lot of good food for thought. I think I think I'll pitch it back to I don't know if Audrey, if you wanted to jump in and make any comments, Audrey or George or Gary. Audrey, you just unmuted, so take it away.
Yeah, no, I think this project is very well thought through from a lot of different angles. And I have some experience working in the Livermore area at a waste management facility where we had to consider all sorts of wildlife habitat and restoration of creekways and stuff like that. It really looks like you guys have done your homework on this, and I'm fully supportive. Thanks for the presentation.
Thanks so much.
Great. So I throw it to Gary, Dan, George. What are you thinking in terms of next steps here, or where we go from here?
I think it's a great project. I agree with Audrey's points, and I think we should ask the task force today if they support sending a letter in support of this project.
Absolutely. I vote thumbs up on that, on a letter of support.
Me too.
Yeah. No, I assume no objection, Gary?
No, that sounds great.
Okay, great. No, I think that's the right next step. So we'll put that in the hopper, draft something up, share it with the leadership of the task force, and get that moving.
And I'll give you all the information you need and who to send it to and all that.
Perfect. Yeah, with your presentation, Marissa. I'm pinch hitting for the world's best policy director today, Lindy Lavender, and I do not want to be derelict in my duty at all, because I don't want her to say, "Oh, you made her a co-host, you didn't get the presentation." So don't make me look bad with Lindy, because one of my main jobs is keeping Lindy happy. So okay, well, if there aren't any other kind of substantive questions or comments about that, I would be derelict in my duty if I didn't mention that we have a couple of important events coming up for the East Bay Leadership Council. So 1 week from today, on Tuesday, October 27th at 2:00, we'll be having the third and final part of the 2020 East Bay Leadership Series. We have 3 chief diversity officers from Albertsons, from Twilio, and the inclusion manager from CSAA Insurance, in a panel that'll be moderated by our immediate past chair, Vic Baker, about challenges that Black employees face at work and what that means and how we can get to racial justice at work. It should be a really interesting conversation, and that's by Zoom. It's free for members. So please, and if you want to promote this to employees at your member companies beyond sort of the usual suspects that come to task forces and other things, Mark is developing promo codes so we can share that to get make sure that you can promote that around your company. So let me know, or let Mark know if you're interested in that. And then on Thursday, November 12th, which is actually after that big thing that happens on November 3rd, we are having our 10th, that's right, our 10th annual Philanthropy Awards. Normally it's a breakfast. And I keep saying our annual Philanthropy Awards breakfast. There's no food involved from us. It's a virtual Zoom event. But we have just a terrific set of honorees this year. And we have a really special program lined up. So I hope that you will participate in that. Details are on our website. So that's 9:00 on Thursday, November 12th, which feels like 14 years from now. Rather than just 16 days or so. So, oh no, actually, I guess it's more than that. We have 23 days. So are there any questions for me about just East Bay Leadership Council business or other matters?
Anything planned for USA in January?
Great question, George. We did give our board members a survey on Thursday, and we have a small planning committee that's meeting, because I will not lie. We have some scheduling flexibility because we are unhinged from a contract with the Concord Hilton.
Right.
Normally, so we are locked in for January 21st, 2021, which is the day after the inauguration. And so I will tell you, 2 roads diverged in a wood among this survey, and people are like, definitely change the date. Don't be so close to inauguration. And then there's definitely like, keep it as it is. It's fine. So anyway, we have a few great ideas in the hopper and some programming to put together for parts 2 and parts 3. So we're really grateful to our sponsors for sticking with us, and we'll have some news soon about what the East Bay USA dinner, which will be our 35th annual, my 7th in this gig, by the way.
Wow.
Time flies.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you want to know anything more about any of that, please let me know. But thank you to the Water District and other agencies for being sponsors, and sponsorships are still available if you haven't yet made that commitment. So Gary, can I pass it to you for some closing thoughts?
Yep. Thank you very much, Kristen and Marissa. You did a great job. I appreciate it. It's a great topic, and we're glad to be supportive of that. I would pitch to this group and all your friends to vote early. To me, one of the greatest things when we wake up on November 3rd, if the majority of our population has already voted, I think that would be absolutely awesome, because we are anticipating a lot of questions around the voting process. So for those of you that are on this call that are candidates, hang in there. It's only 2 weeks left, so you can make it. And yeah, we'll take it from there. So thank you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. We'll add those 2 folks, Jody and Tim, to the distribution, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Thanks so much, everybody. This recording will be available through our member login as usual. Have a great day.
Be safe.
Thank you.